My dear friends, let me ask you something. As the years pass, have you noticed how the world keeps getting louder? Everywhere you turn, there are opinions, advice, voices telling you how you should live. But here's the quiet truth. Old age isn't about chasing noise or pleasing every demand. It's about finding peace. It's about turning inward. It's about choosing silence when silence is what strengthens you. Today, I want to share with you, heart to heart, why this season of life may be the perfect time to focus on yourself, and why silence can become your greatest wisdom. As we grow older, many things naturally change. Our bodies slow down. Some friends and loved ones are no longer here. Children build their own families and responsibilities. The roles we carried for decades, worker, parent, provider, caregiver, shift into memory. And with that change, it's easy to feel like part of your identity has slipped away. For so long, your worth may have been tied to how much you gave. But now, perhaps for the first time, the real measure becomes how much peace you allow yourself to feel. Focusing on yourself does not mean selfishness. It means self-respect. It means recognizing that your well-being matters too. Think about it. Most of your life has been spent in service to others. You've given time, energy, advice, love, and care. But now, your health, your mind, and your spirit are calling out for attention. They are asking you to remember that you count too. I think of a woman named Mary. For decades, she was the glue in her family. She raised her children, then helped with her grandchildren. She volunteered at her church, cared for a sick neighbor, and never once said no. She believed her value was measured by how much she could give. But in her 70s, her body began to remind her of the cost. She grew tired, drained, and at times invisible. That's when she asked herself for the very first time, "What do I need?" Mary made a decision that changed everything. She began to set boundaries. She rested when she needed to. She picked up her paintbrush again, returning to the joy she once knew as a little girl. She spent mornings in her garden, sitting in silence, listening to the birds. At first, her family worried she was pulling away, but soon they saw something different. They saw her smile return. They saw her strength come back. They saw her spirit brighten. Mary later told me, "For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm living for me, not just for everyone else." Her story is a reminder. When you focus on yourself, you don't lose love. You gain peace. And that peace doesn't just stay with you. It radiates outward, blessing everyone around you with the gift of your calm, your joy, and your renewed strength. If these words touched your heart and sparked inspiration within you, leave a 3 in the comments to let it shine. If they did not, leave a 0 in quiet honesty. Every thought you share is a gift. Thank you for giving us a moment of your precious time. Now, let's talk about silence. Too many people mistake silence for emptiness, as if it were a void to be feared or filled. But the truth is, silence is not emptiness. Silence is fullness. It is the moment when your soul takes a deep breath. In a world that never seems to stop talking, advertising, buzzing, and pushing, silence can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Yet when you choose it intentionally, silence becomes healing. It gives your heart space. It gives your mind rest. It allows your spirit to remember what matters. Think of silence like a garden. When you turn off the noise, when you stop the endless chatter, you create fertile soil. And in that soil, peace grows. You don't need to fill every moment with conversation. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to participate in every argument. Sometimes silence is the most powerful answer you can give. An answer that says, I value my peace more than your chaos. Take John, for example, a retired mechanic in his 80s. His children adored him, but they leaned on him constantly. Fix this, babysit the grandkids, come to every event. John loved his family dearly, but he felt stretched thin. One evening, after yet another request, he decided not to get in the car and drive across town. Instead, he made himself a cup of tea, settled into his favourite chair, and opened a book he'd been meaning to read. At first, guilt crept in. The old voice whispered, Am I being selfish? Shouldn't I always show up for them? But as he sat in that quiet, something shifted. The guilt began to fade, and in its place came a calm he hadn't felt in years. His body relaxed, his breath slowed, and for the first time in a long time, John felt at home in himself. The next day, he gently told his children, I love you, but I need some time for me too. To his surprise, they didn't resent it, they respected it. They realized their father was still teaching them, even in his 80s, teaching them how to honor themselves. Like John, we can all learn that silence is not running away. Silence is choosing peace. It is not neglect. It is nourishment. Silence teaches you to listen again, not just to the world, but to yourself. It helps you hear the whispers of your own heart and the wisdom that only appears when the noise is gone. Science even supports what many elders have discovered in their own experience. In the United States, nearly 1 in 3 older adults report feeling lonely. And loneliness, research shows, can increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, memory loss, and depression. But here's the important truth. Being alone is not the same thing as being lonely. You can sit in silence and feel whole. You can rest in solitude and feel deeply connected to life itself. Mary, who found healing in her garden, wasn't isolated. She was restored. John, who found strength in his chair with a book, wasn't abandoned. He was renewed. Both discovered what modern science now confirms. Silence lowers stress hormones, calms the heart, and even strengthens the immune system. When you choose silence, you are not just protecting your thoughts, you are protecting your health. But silence is more than medicine. Silence also protects your dignity. As you grow older, you do not need to prove yourself anymore. You don't have to fight every battle, win every argument, or explain every choice. Silence says, I have nothing to prove. I am enough. Silence also teaches acceptance. Life has given you both joy and loss. You've carried regrets, faced heartbreaks, and lived through moments you cannot change. Silence gives you space to release them. Mary let go of years of guilt by returning to her painting. John let go of the pressure to please everyone by resting. In both cases, silence created room for acceptance, and with acceptance came peace. When you learn to sit in silence, you learn to sit with yourself. And when you sit with yourself, you discover something profound. You are stronger than you thought, wiser than you imagined, and more complete than you ever gave yourself credit for. Silence, chosen and honored, is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of living it fully, in peace, with dignity, and on your own terms. Silence, as we have seen, is not a void. It is presence, strength, and healing. But silence does more than protect your spirit or restore your body. It can also transform the way you connect with the people around you. In fact, Silence can be the very bridge that deepens relationships and leaves a lasting legacy. To begin with, silence can serve as a bridge to others. Too often, conversations turn into battles of voices, each person rushing to be heard, while no one truly listens. But when you choose silence, you create space for another person's heart to speak. Think about the last time someone sat with you quietly, without interruption, without judgment, simply letting you pour out your thoughts. Didn't you feel lighter, safer, more valued? That is the gift of silence. When you offer it to your children or grandchildren, they sense your respect. They feel understood. And in that moment, silence doesn't separate you. It draws you closer. As the saying goes, silence doesn't separate us. It often brings us closer, because in quiet listening, love is heard most clearly. Furthermore, silence is not only a tool for connection, but also a form of strength in decision-making. With age comes experience, but experience only bears fruit when paired with reflection. In the rush of conversation, emotions can take over. Words can fly that later bring regret. Yet when you pause, when you hold back your voice for just a moment, you allow wisdom to rise above impulse. This pause is not weakness, it is power. It is the moment when clarity takes the lead. Many older adults discover that silence gives them the courage to say less, but mean more, to choose their battles wisely, and to act from calm understanding rather than reaction. When you pause before speaking, you give wisdom a chance to rise above impulse. This is the kind of mastery that only comes with time, and it becomes a guiding light not just for you, but for those who watch how you live. But silence has an even deeper layer. It is a spiritual connection. When the noise of the world fades, the whispers of the soul become clear. For some, silence opens the door to prayer, where God's voice can be heard not in thunder, but in stillness. For others, silence reveals the gentle rhythms of nature, the rustling of leaves, the call of birds, the soft rhythm of one's own breath. And for many, silence simply provides the mirror in which the self is finally seen without distraction. In silence, some hear God, others hear nature, and many hear their own soul. All of them find truth. That truth, once embraced, becomes a steady foundation that no external chaos can shake. Silence, in this sense, is not an escape from life, but a pathway into its deepest meaning. Equally important, silence is a gift to the next generation. Children and grandchildren are always watching, even when they do not say it out loud. They notice how you respond to conflict, how you carry disappointment, how you move through pain. When they see you choose silence over anger, calm over shouting, presence over defensiveness, they learn a lesson that no lecture could ever teach. You show them that real strength is not always loud or forceful. Sometimes it is gentle, steady, and quiet. As the wisdom goes, your silence teaches your children and grandchildren that strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is calm. In this way, your silence becomes part of the legacy you leave, a living example that outlives possessions and property. And so, as we reflect on silence, we see that it is not only for the self, it is for connection, for wisdom, for spirit, and for those who follow after us. Silence, chosen with intention, becomes one of the greatest teachers of life. It is the pause that deepens love, the stillness that strengthens choices, the quiet that reveals truth, and the calm that shapes generations. As we come to the close of this reflection, I want you to remember something very simple yet profoundly powerful. Silence is not emptiness. It is a presence, a space that holds wisdom, peace, and truth. In silence, we give ourselves room to breathe, to heal, and to listen. But silence is not only for ourselves. It is also a bridge that connects us more deeply to those we love. When you sit quietly and truly listen, you give your children and grandchildren a gift greater than advice. You give them the feeling of being heard, of being valued. Silence also strengthens your ability to make choices. In a world full of pressure and noise, silence gives you the space to pause, to reflect, and to let wisdom rise above impulse. It reminds you that not every reaction needs to be immediate, and not every voice around you must be followed. Sometimes the strongest voice is the one you hear in your heart, speaking in quiet clarity. And beyond the human world, silence opens a door to the spiritual. Some hear God in the silence, others hear the rhythm of nature, and many hear their own soul. However you experience it, silence grounds you in truth. It is a legacy worth passing on, because it shows the next generation that strength is not always loud. Sometimes, the deepest strength is calm. So my friends, as you move through this season of life, don't fear the silence. Embrace it, live it, share it. Let it guide you toward peace, clarity, and connection. And if this message has spoken to you, I invite you to like this video, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to the channel for more reflections like this one.